In the famous story, The Christmas Carol, Ebenezer Scrooge is visited by three ghosts, four if you count Jacob Marley. And the second spirit of Christmas that he meets is the spirit of Christmas present. And it is a large, gregarious spirit who's dressed in a fine green robe, carrying a huge cornucopia lit with fire, giving light to everyone, bringing joy and mirth everywhere. He carries a sword scabbard, but no sword within it, for there is peace on earth and goodwill to man. A banquet is laid for all to partake of, and he is rollicking with joy and inebriation. And he invites Ebenezer to come and taste the goodness, to experience the overabundance of what it means to live in the spirit of Christmas right here and right now. But as the story with this particular spirit goes on, it gets very disturbing toward the end. For the spirit lifts up his great robe and reveals to Ebenezer Scrooge two emaciated, subhuman children clinging to the robe of Christmas present. A small boy named Ignorance, and a small girl named Want. And the ghost of the Christmas spirit says to Ebenezer, beware these two children, Ignorance and Want, but especially the boy, Ignorance, because upon his forehead I read the word doom. And it is a very stark moment right there, that beneath all of the grandeur, there is still this creepy, crawly feeling that inhabits the hearts and souls of us all, ignorance and want. Today, as Jesus enters into the story of Peter and his brother and James and John, there is an ignorance, if you will, of who he is. We enter into a story of discovery now, because Peter doesn't know who this man is. The disciples have not yet been gathered together. As you recall, Jesus was just thrown out of his hometown, rejected by the people he grew up with. And so now he begins a new chapter, and he calls new disciples, men who had no idea who he was, who didn't have any preconceptions. And what he does for them is reveals for them the abundance, the greatness, and the glory of God. Prefigured in the reading we heard from Isaiah tonight. Isaiah the prophet, called to be a prophet, is given a revelation of the temple of God. And he's given this revelation of God's glory as it unfolds and flows like fire and smoke, and the train of his robes filling the sanctuary, and the whole earth shaking at God's greatness. And Isaiah the prophet realizes, I am a sinful man. I can't look upon this. I am a man of unclean lips. I say bad things. I'm a man of unclean life. I live poorly. And so the fiery angels are sent to him to burn away all that keeps him from seeing God as he is. And that burning ember to touch his lips, to sear away his sin, so that he can proclaim the goodness of God, so that he can announce the greatness, so that he can be a prophet to the world and call people back to the Lord. He saw the greatness of God and realized his own inadequacy. And in that, his ignorance and his want were filled. God gives him his knowledge, and God fills and satisfies his heart and soul. In the calling of Peter, we see Jesus, the God of ancient Israel, the God whose train filled the heavens and was revealed to Isaiah, Now he comes in human form, and he reveals to Simon something more. He reveals to Simon that he's special, that Jesus got into his boat. Jesus chose him among all the fishermen that were bringing their boats back to the shore. That Jesus got in his boat and said, let's go, and began to preach that word. And then he challenges Peter. We're going out deep now. I'm going to take you to a place you haven't been before. And when we've been to a place we haven't been before, there is fear and excitement all at the same time. And this fear and excitement escalate as the fish start pulling the nets, and the nets begin to grow, and the boat begins to tip, and the waters are bubbling with the fish. The excitement and the terror are both there in Peter's heart. Imagine them working frantically to get everything under control, calling the partners in the other boat to come over there. And there is Jesus, sitting calmly, watching all of this happen in the front of the boat. And when Peter gets that a moment to catch his breath, trembling probably with the adrenaline that has been rushing through his veins, falls on his face before Jesus and says, I am not worthy to have you here. I am a sinful, sinful man. Go away from me. I don't deserve this. And Peter is right. He doesn't deserve that. He doesn't deserve Jesus to come into his boat. He doesn't deserve Jesus to take him out to where he hasn't been before. And he certainly doesn't deserve Jesus' miracle of filling his life with an abundance. And yet that is exactly what Jesus wants to do for him. He wants to give him every grace available. He wants to fill his life with goodness. He wants to give him something that he could never have gotten on his own. Jesus wants Peter, and I almost see the smile on Jesus' face. Do not be afraid, for you are now going to be catching men. I am going to raise you up to a greater vocation, and I am going to ask you to do something magnificent. What a brilliant story. The story of Isaiah the prophet, who is made holy and purified by God to do his work. The story of Simon Peter the apostle, who is made brilliant and holy to do the work of God. But it is the story of us. You and I are that story as well. Because God comes into our boats. He comes into our lives, and he wants to lift us up. But beware. Beware of ignorance and want, because they will keep us from that great banquet that the ghost of Christmas present wanted Ebenezer to know. Every time we prepare for this banquet, for this liturgy, to celebrate the Lord's goodness, and to celebrate the very same miracles that we hear about in this gospel today, and I prepare myself by putting on these robes, we remember that we are called to be more than we are. Because like the ghost, if I were to pull up the robes, there's an ordinary man underneath. A priest clothed in black. A priest clothed in death. A priest clothed in his own mortality, reminding us on the street that we are dying every day without God. But it's he who covers us in the waters of baptism, covering us, changing us, making us shine brightly, not a bit of black left, white, glorious in our baptismal purity, and giving us a mantle of salvation that shows us how special we are. You and I must uncover that sin. You and I must bring that sin to be forgiven, because that is how we are given our great gift. That is how Peter and Isaiah were raised up and made better. Lord, I am a sinful man. God immediately rushes in and changes that person. and makes them something different. Oh Christian, remember your dignity. Remember what God has called you to be, that glory that He wants you to be. Do not run in fear away from Him, but come with your sin and all to be purified. Archbishop Lucas this Lent is inviting all Catholics throughout the diocese to re-experience the sacrament of confession as if for the first time. And you'll notice in your bulletin a pamphlet that has been given to every parish in the diocese. The light is on every Thursday from 5:30 to 7 throughout Lent. Churches throughout the diocese will be hearing confession, so that no matter where you are, you will find the sacrament available. I don't want to be sitting in there alone. I don't want to be wasting my time. Come see me. But don't see me. Come see Jesus. Come see Him and be forgiven. Come see Him and let Him clothe you in the dignity that is ours. Because as that ghost of Christmas present reminded Ebenezer Scrooge, don't live in ignorance. Don't live in want. Come, feast at the banquet. Be clothed in the robe of gladness. Let God change you by the forgiveness of your sins. Isaiah, Peter, you.